Hello and welcome to another episode of Talking Politics, the weekly takedown that we do of headline making events in domestic politics on the Hindu's YouTube channel. I'm Nistula Hebbar, and this week, rather than address the noise and the color of campaigning being underway in the 5 states going into assembly polls across the country, we will be going to Maharashtra, where the reservation agitation, the agitation to demand reservations in government jobs and educational institutions by the Maratha community finally came to a head and sparked some violence, and has for the time being suspended its agitation, or at least the hunger strike undertaken by Maratha reservation activist Manoj Jarange-Patil, in agreement with the government's proposals that they will take this forward. But this is a temporary truce, so it will of course come up once again. So therefore, this is the perfect time to enter the story and talk about exactly what this issue is about, how long is the history of the demand for Maratha reservations, and where do we see it going. Welcome back, and let's just plunge right into the history of this demand for Maratha reservations. As always, let us start with anthropology, which is who are the Marathas and just how long has this demand for reservations been around now. The Maratha community comprises 33% of the population of Maharashtra. They are a politically dominant community, and 31 years among all the other years of assembly elections in the state have seen Maratha chief ministers at the helm of affairs. Now, with such a community, how come this kind of a demand for reservations seems to have come up? Because reservations as such demand some amount of deprivation to be addressed through reservations in government jobs and educational institutions. Now, the Maratha community, as I said, is 33% of Maharashtra's population, politically dominant in terms of numbers and in terms of assertion. The community comprises of 96 clans. But more than anything, most of the Maratha community is actually engaged in agriculture. Now, a lot of the Maratha community is directly engaged with land. Some parts of the Maratha community are also identified as Kshatriyas and warrior community, etc., etc. Now, Manoj Jarange-Patil has said that the entire Maratha community deserves to have some reservations, because low yields. First of all, the Maratha community people have their land holdings are barely less than 2 hectares per person, per household, and low yields from these small land holdings, often hit by drought, etc., and has led the community to be facing a lot of economic distress, etc. So the demand is that, look, all this talk about the Marathas being extremely dominating, etc., has not held water, because the occupations that the Maratha community at large is engaged with is not remunerative anymore. And this is why Marathwada region has emerged as the epicenter of this agitation. Now, the first protest on reservations for Marathas took place in 1982, as far back as that. The protest was led by labor union leader Anna Sahib Patil, who subsequently passed away in the process of this agitation. And his demand for quotas was based on the economic criteria. As I said, Marathas have been facing a lot of economic deprivation in the past, and subsequent social deprivation, and that's why that has formed the basis of their demand for reservation. Now, this demand for just reservations based on economic deprivation changed to a caste quota after the Mandal Commission report of 1990. That's when a lot of the identity politics with regard to caste and reservations actually burst upon the Indian political scene. Now, in 2004, at that time, this demand used to be raised, but a lot of the empowerment that was going on about other OBC castes, the OBC castes were actually grabbing the center stage in Indian politics. So this remained a little backgrounded. But in 2004, the Maharashtra government included Maratha Kundis, and Kunbi Marathas in the list of other backward classes, that is the OBCs, but it left out those who identified as just plain Marathas. Now, Kunbis were already identified or classified as OBCs, and although Marathas and Kunbis have the same origin, the two are treated as two different communities on a social level in Maharashtra. As I told you, like a large number of them are involved in agriculture, but some parts of the Maratha community are identified more as warriors, etc., and therefore considered socially more superior. And so the Kunbi, the largely agricultural part of the Maratha community, got the OBC status, but not the entire Maratha community. So the Kunbis and the Marathas are the same by profession, and both are majorly associated with farm-related occupations. But as I said, some were socially identified with a warrior community and thus considered more empowered socially. Now, Maratha leaders demanded that their community be included in the list of OBCs. Is it this, not just Kunbis, the entire community needs to be added, and certain groups opposed this demand as they argued that the inclusion of the powerful Maratha community, socially powerful, politically powerful, numerically powerful, would eat into their share of the OBC reservation pie. But the actual protest that we are seeing now, the grains of that lie in 2016 and the demand for Maratha reservations gaining momentum. Then, allied to this particular set of events was a very brutal rape and murder of a 15-year-old Maratha girl in Kopardi in 2016, and actually that became a rallying point for various Maratha groups, saying that the situation of the Maratha community has come down so low that even if people are saying that the Maratha community is powerful and politically powerful, it's actually not true on the ground, and that people have become emboldened in terms of committing crime against Maratha women and Maratha girls. And this was also seen, this entire event, very, very tragic, brutal event, was seen as demonstrative of the need for the Maratha community to assert itself and demand reservations in the larger OBC bloc. Now, there were various protests that happened since then, including 58 silent marches and an attack on the accused in that rape case when he was on his way to being presented at court. So all of these things happened in 2016 to 18, and under then Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis, who belongs to the Brahmin community and has come in for some amount of flack, which we'll talk about later. But in 2018, though, he was instrumental in basically granting 16% reservation to Marathas in education and jobs. Now, the moment this was announced, legal challenges and scrutinies of the provisions began, and these were challenged in court. As you know, the Indira Sani case with regard to the Mandal Commission report implementation, that there is a 50% ceiling in terms of reservations to be granted. So everything that has to be done within that 50% quota, with 27% given to OBCs, about 14% to SCs, that is scheduled castes, and 7% to scheduled tribes. So you cannot actually, there is really not much scope to add more communities outside of that 50% range. So with 16% only given over to Marathas, this percentage becomes about 66% or 64%, and therefore this is immediately legally challenged in court. First, it was challenged in the Bombay High Court, which upheld the validity of this reservation, giving a lot of breathing space to the Fadnavis government there. But the High Court also reduced the quota overall from 16% to 13% in jobs and 12% in educational institutions. Now, this was then challenged in the Supreme Court, and the Constitutional Bench of the Supreme Court in the May of 2021, it struck down the law that had been brought in by the Devendra Fadnavis government in 2018, and that is where legally the matter lay till in October of this year, 2023, the Supreme Court agreed to list the Maharashtra government's curative plea on the reservation issue. Now, this is just the background of what happened. Now, the man who's been making a lot of news in terms of this agitation and his leadership of it is Manoj Jarange-Patil. And quite like Hardik Patel with regard to the Patidar Andolan, not much is known from him. He doesn't actually belong to any particular political party or anything, but he has assumed the leadership of the Maratha community in demanding reservations, etc. Now he also founded an outfit called Shivba Sangatana, and they organize protests for Maratha reservations quite regularly. Now, what happened with Mr. Jarange-Patil is that he went on an indefinite hunger strike since August 29th in Jalna, and called it off after 17 days when Chief Minister Eknath Shinde of Maharashtra personally called on him and persuaded him to withdraw the strike. But before that, matters got muddied. Before that, because a lathi charge by the police on September 1st in the midst of this first hunger strike, it left some people injured, and it basically brought a lot of spotlight on Mr. Jarange-Patil in particular. Till then, it was like a lot of other protest movements that happen. Sometimes the government thinks it can manage these things. Sometimes they look at it as a purely law and order situation, or they wait for enthusiasm to fizzle out. But the September 1st lathi charge and the violence that happened brought this entire issue into the limelight and accrued a lot of support from the community at large, and political party leaders, especially from the Maratha community, were accused of basically enjoying political power on the basis of the numbers of the Maratha vote, but have done nothing for the community as such. They were banned from entering their villages, and there was a lot of stuff that happened since then. So when this lathi charge happened, CM Eknath Shinde realized that this was going to be a very, very tough situation to resolve. He personally called on Jarange-Patil. He said, please put off your hunger strike. We will do something. We are in favor of Maratha reservations. We have to find a legal way around it. At that point of time, Mr. Patil had said, all right, I'll give you a 40-day break. Deadline is there after 40 days, which ended on October 24th, and the government has to fulfill the demands of the Maratha community before that, find a way to do it. And in the middle of all this, as I said, politicians were banned from entering villages, and like the residents of Prakash Solanke of the NCP, which is Ajit Pawar group of the NCP, he's the legislator from Majalgaon, was set on fire. His house was set on fire after a bout of stone pelting for, making remarks against Mr. Jarange-Patil. In the same evening, the residence cum office of another NCP MLA, Sandeep Shirsagar, who's on the Sharad Pawar group, also met the same fate. And, the agitation in Bid was in fact even more violent. The demonstrators torched a Nagar Parishad building in Majalgaon and an NCP office in the district. In Sambhajinagar district, formerly Aurangabad, Maratha quota agitators vandalized the office of Prashant Bam, the Bharatiya Janata Party MLA from Gangagur. So, when all of this was happening, again the Maharashtra government said, look, this is it's a legal tangle. It's not that the Maharashtra government never wanted it done. The BJP Shiv Sena government in the past under Devendra Fadnavis had in fact passed a bill granting quotas to the Maratha community. It was struck down by the court. So now you need to, and now the government's curative petition has been accepted by the Supreme Court. So one needs to kind of look at the legal niceties, etc., and what is going to go through that. So finally, Manoj Jarange-Patil on November 2nd, after many days of hunger strike from October 24th, agreed to withdraw his indefinite strike after 9 days. A delegation from the state government persuaded him to call off his hunger strike. Basically, he said that the ban on politicians entering the villages would also be temporarily withdrawn. So in the government delegation that came to talk to him, retired judges M.G. Gaikwad, who had headed the Maharashtra State Backward Classes Commission, and S.B. Shukre were also included in order to persuade Jarange-Patil that, look, there needs to be a lot of legal niceties that need to be smoothed over in terms of approaching the Supreme Court, from where the legal validity of a Maratha quota has to be sought Any government can pass any law, but if it is legally challenged, so you need to make a legal case for it. There is the 50%, what do you call it, 50% ceiling on reservations for communities and castes, and therefore there needs to be some sort of a legal way out through to find a loophole through which the Maratha community can be given reservations. There needs to be time. You need to discuss these things. Now, again, time has only been given till the end of December. Again, Mr. Jarange-Patil has said that if you don't do what you have promised that you will, I will be going on agitation and hunger strike again. Now, the Maratha reservation, as I said, is not a new phenomenon. The Patidar community's demands in Gujarat and the Jat communities in parts of Uttar Pradesh and Haryana are also very public examples of communities demanding reservations, largely agrarian communities, and many of these demands can be related to the failure of agriculture to provide remunerative employment in the countryside. Now, politically, the community is dominant in Maharashtra, and the Eknath Shinde government will have to tread very, very carefully in how to handle this agitation, and especially now that it has a very recognizable face to lead it. The ball, unfortunately for the government, is firmly in the Supreme Court, and we'll have to see what the court comes up with in terms of dealing with this big question, and what is the status of the 50% ceiling that was quoted earlier to strike down the Maratha reservation. We will be there to track this story once the legal tangle is also looked into. Until then, thank you so much for watching.